I've had some really helpful feedback on some of my videos, and I wanted to clarify a few things. For me, the whole conversation that's happening about race at the moment is a really, really good thing. I think the thing that shocked me is the number of people, white people, for whom this is a revelation. When I was 16 and 17, I did a huge amount of reading of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. I explored race at that point. I lived at the age of 18 and 19 as one of two white guys in a community of Swazis in southern Africa. And I got used to just seeing everyone around me being black, and that was my normal. I've been thinking about race for a really long time, and I think my biggest surprise is the shock that some people have that there might be racism in the UK. I know that there's racism. And I want to make it really clear in all the questions that I'm asking, in everything that I'm trying to do, I am not trying to undermine the great move that is happening in our nation to make people think about that. I want to see racism rooted out of our ways of thinking, acting, and being. But there are some different ideas about how we go about that. There's some different intellectual stuff about that, and that's what I've been trying to get into. Don't for 1 second think that I think there's a problem with us talking about race and confronting racism, which really does exist. To take you back a few years, and I think this was 2012, but I can't remember. I was a vicar in a different place, and part of our annual training as vicars, we got sent away, and the speaker got up, and it was a guy from my area, this amazing guy called Christian Weaver. He had set up a church, a black majority church, in the same area that I was living and working, and set it up years ago. And he was a guy I looked up to. I'd met him at meetings. He was a great, great elder statesman of the church, somebody I looked up to. And he told the story of moving to the UK as a young man, and of coming from the West Indies to England, to Nottingham, and coming, and he said, we were the community, and we were part of the Anglican church. We joined, we went to our local church, and we'd been church wardens, we'd had a position in our own church, and we turned up. And we were made to sit in seats at the back. We weren't allowed into the structures and the organisation, and we were just treated as second-class citizens. And he told the story of how with great sadness he'd gone and planted a black majority church when actually he had wanted to join what he saw as his church in the UK. And I sat there as the now leader of maybe one of those churches who'd rejected that in the past. I mean, before my birth. And as a church council, we wrote a letter to his church and apologised for the history of our church. What it made me think is, we talk about the ideas of bringing racial harmony, and I wanted to bring it down to brass tacks, and my area of expertise, my area of experience is the church. So I started to think, and this is what I want to think about today, kind of out loud with all of you, is what would it look like for the black majority church and the white majority church to not just be friends and work alongside, but actually to unify? It would be totally wrong for the Church of England, and I'm a Church of England vicar, to say to whichever black majority church down the road, oh, come and join us, be part of us, and we'll be in charge and you can be part of us. That would be totally wrong. But it would also be totally wrong for the opposite to happen, for us to come as the white majority church and just join and say, oh, you lead us. Because actually integration is not as living out of our guilt and our poor history and our prejudice, but it's about coming together. I was thinking about what was Jesus like with race relations? And what struck me was Jesus was both an oppressed race and minority and part of an oppressing race. Let me clear that up for you. I'm not saying he was bad in any way, but Jesus was a Jew, and the Jews looked down on, racially and systematically looked down on and treated the Samaritans differently. They were also persecuted by the Romans as this dominant Nazi-style occupation that was in their nation. So he was both oppressed, and his people, his race, his nationality were oppressors. And Jesus never really talked about that in terms of his identity. What he did was he responded to the Roman soldiers, the Roman leaders, the people he interacted with total love. These were the oppressors of his people, and he rejected the kind of nationalism to fight against that, but he challenged them in his words, and he loved them. And when he met Samaritans, he loved them, and he treated them differently, but he called out where they were wrong. He wasn't caught up in a struggle. He wasn't caught up in what the big picture was. He cared about the individual who was in front of him and treating them as an important human being who is made in the image of God, who is important to him. Every single person, the oppressor, the oppressed, were all important to him because he wanted to see them come to life in all its fullness, living out the kingdom of God, knowing him, knowing God, and being changed for the better. He didn't get into the politics of identity with any of them. He loved them as they were and saw everyone as equal in God's sight. And I think that's great. And that's what I'm seeking to follow, because he's my leader. And that's why we do have to get involved with the fact that there are many, 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 many individuals of colour across our nation who are suffering. And it's not okay. It's not okay that black people get their cars stopped just because they have a nice car. It's not okay that because they're running past somebody's house, that they get accused of, attempting to steal a car because they're black. Those kind of prejudices need dealing with. The fact that certain areas in our society and certain kind of heights in business just are all white. That's not okay. And we need to deal with that. But for each one of us, it's about what's in front of us. How do we treat the people in front of us equally on the basis of their character, not on the colour of their skin? And I'm quoting directly from Martin Luther King there. That was his dream and his goal, that people would be treated by the content of their character, not by the colour of their skin. And when I was 17, when I was reading Malcolm X and I was reading Martin Luther King, I chose Martin Luther King's way of thinking. Malcolm X made it about black and white. He made it about, the white devil. And I feel like some of the way that we're talking is following Malcolm X. And I want us to follow Martin Luther King, that great leader, that great man, who was one of the most amazing Christians of the 20th century, who just so happened to be black. He's not great because he was black. He was a great man, regardless of his colour. But the content of his character was awesome. He was flawed, but he was awesome. And his writings and words changed the world. He's one of my greatest heroes. And my dream and my hope is that we can get beyond looking at each other but from the colour of our skins, but by the content of our characters. And that we just look at every person we meet in front of us and we deal with them on the content of their character. We point them towards Jesus. We love them. We care for them. And that they are important and special to us the same way Jesus acted. And in doing so, we build an equal community, an equal area, an equal nation where there is no racism, structural, personal, any type. And there's work to be done. But I'm really grateful for the people who fed back to me. Many of them have done it in in private, through text, through conversation. And I am really grateful for the people who have challenged me and called me out and said, it seems like you're saying this. It seems like you're saying that racism isn't a problem or we shouldn't be talking about this. That has not been my intention at all. We need to talk about it. My reading for this summer will include lots of things about race. I am praying and hoping and living for racial harmony and justice. I hope you are too. And I hope you understand that I've been in this fight a while and I'm asking some questions about the ideologies and the how. And I am not for one single second suggesting that this isn't important and isn't something we should be fighting for. Thanks.